Whether an animal is in pain or not is usually a pretty absolute answer. It's either in pain or it's not. You got a dog that got hit by a car, it's whimpering, oh, it's in pain. You got a cat that's just sitting there, it's probably not in pain. But sometimes it does get a little more complicated, especially with certain species, like pretty much any reptile. And today I'll be talking about bearded dragons using this girl as an example, who came in recently. I don't know much about her. I just opened the box and here she was. So it would have been a good unboxing video, but I thought it was just a normal bearded coming, and I got surprised with Stan 2.0, who is my male bearded dragon, who I've had for years, and you've probably seen him. In fact, millions of people have. And with millions of people seeing an animal comes millions of opinions. And when I show Stan, there's a ton of different comments about whether he's happy or sad, if they even feel those emotions in the first place, or if he's simply in pain or not, and if he'd be better off being euthanized or just basically not being alive at all. And the same question comes up with this one. So I will tell you a bit about my experiences with her so you can kind of develop your own opinion, and definitely leave a comment because I'm curious to see the assortment and what people kind of conclude from seeing and hearing about her. I'll also talk about how I've always tried to determine whether a reptile specifically is in pain, and we'll go in detail with her. So yeah, she came in a few weeks ago, something like that. Right off the bat, she looked really weird. She was just kind of funny to look at. She moves around really awkwardly, and she just doesn't look too happy. She's got an awkward underbite. Her legs are just basically squished forwards. Her tail is just all wobbly all over the place. She's looking at me like she's wishing she could just die. But I don't know, maybe she's not wishing she could die. Maybe she's wishing she could live another 100 years. Who knows? She's eaten fine. Drinking has been difficult, so what I've been doing is I'm scared about giving her a deep bowl, or any bowl at all, because I'm scared she's just gonna like climb in and drown or something. So what I've been doing is every few days I just put her on a plate with water, because it just holds a little bit, and she just sits in like this lukewarm water, and then she can drink. And she drinks pretty much every time, which tells me she's probably not drinking any water out of her dish, because she can't really get to it. With bugs, I can just throw them on the table while in her enclosure, and she can eat those. She can't really chase them around. I can't give her like quick doobies or whatever, but anything kind of slow or like a vegetable, like literally a vegetable, not like an insect that's paralyzed, but like an actual vegetable, she can eat. That's kind of all I know about her, I guess. She basks and stuff, so. But the main thing is figuring out whether reptiles are in pain. Usually the number one factor I use is stress. And if a reptile is stressed, there's a pretty likely chance it's in pain. Of course, stress can just be a mental thing. It can just be getting stressed out by its environment, but it can also be physical, and there's a handful of things that can tell you. First off is not eating or drinking. Drinking might just be they simply can't get to their bowl. Eating might just be the insects. They can't be caught, with this beardy specifically. But if you accommodate everything as easy as possible and the animal still is not eating or drinking, it's probably stressed. It's a normal thing, happens with people too. You don't eat while you're stressed because you're gonna be a bit more on edge. You don't want something digesting in your stomach if you're in that fight or flight mode where something's gonna happen. And that stress could be caused by the physical pain they're experiencing. Drinking, it could also literally be something in their mouth. Maybe when they bite food, there's pain in their mouth and they prefer the feeling of starvation over the feeling of the pain in their mouth. Same with drinking. Maybe they have an open sore or something. Maybe the cold water going past it or getting into an open wound stings, a lot like a person. So even though they don't display the pain in the same ways, they experience a lot of the same things we do if we have like a cavity and we try to eat on it or something. With beardies in particular, and some other reptiles, they might not want to bask. This could be simply because they cannot get to the basking spot, or because it's too painful to move and get to that spot, or too painful to move away from the basking and they start overheating. It could also be because basking oftentimes means they're out in the open. If you're stressed out, if you're in that fight or flight mode and scared something might hurt you, you're gonna want to be hidden. So they might prefer to be colder and hidden and stuff over being able to actually bask. Also, not opening their eyes. This can be different for different reptiles. For example, chameleons, it's one of the most common ways to tell if they're stressed because they literally just keep their eyes closed. But they could also, say this bearded dragon wasn't opening her eyes, maybe there's something actually wrong with her eyes. Maybe they're clogged, there's fluids in them, there's crust, an infection or a cut or something. But they could also just not be opening their eyes the same way a chameleon or other animals do because they're stressed. I don't really know for sure if beardies do that, so you can, I guess, tell me because I haven't really looked into that. But a handful of animals do just that. They don't open their eyes if they're stressed out. You can see now she's trying to walk. She gave up. Also, opening their mouth. Even though not opening their eyes can say that they're stressed, also opening their mouth can. We've had ball pythons come in that, oh, she's moving now, look at her go. Let's see if she can make it to the end of the table before I finish my point. We've had ball pythons come in with respiratory infections where they have literally so much fluid in like their throat that they're having trouble getting air through that hole thing in their mouth. I forgot what it's called off the top of my head, but basically they're having trouble breathing, and that obviously is going to cause some pain. They're constantly opening their mouth. I've seen the same happen with lizards and other animals, so it's just a little thing to throw in there. And then of course, two more obvious ones is they're not moving, like if they never move. Like Stan, my bearded dragon, doesn't move very often, but he can when he needs to. But if an animal literally is not moving, even to go get their food or water or something important, or basking or getting cooled off away from their basking, again, it's not always the case. Like I have a video called "My Chubby Frog Did Not Move for 1 year," and it's true. He wasn't in pain, he just didn't have a reason to move. He had his right temperature, he was hydrated, and I would give him food right where he was, so he literally didn't have a reason to. But if an animal has a reason to move and they still don't, that could be pain. And the most obvious probably is literally just an open sore or an open wound. If you see blood, if you see a cut, kind of obvious. I don't really need to go into detail there. However, there can also be indirect pain caused by something else. So say the reason that I would guess she was in pain, if she is because of her metabolic bone disease and the way that her bones developed as she grew. It's literally just so awkward, it could physically be uncomfortable. But that could also cause other things that cause her pain. So go back to starvation and dehydration. If she literally can't get to her food or water, starving's kind of painful. Being extra thirsty, extra painful. You get what I'm saying? So even though the metabolic bone disease is not what's physically hurting her, the indirect cause of her being hungry or thirsty could actually be putting her in pain, so you just gotta be aware of that. Same with being hot or cold. If they can or cannot get to and from their hot spot or their cool area, depending on the species, from basking to not basking, from being on their heat mat to being under a cool hide or something. They could also not just be too hot or too cold and being uncomfortable because of that, but they could literally have digestion issues. Take certain geckos that really need that nice warmth to properly digest food. Sometimes leopard geckos might get impacted, even though the food they're eating is totally safe. They might not have the right temperatures, and so they physically have trouble digesting the food properly, and it starts clogging them and getting stuck in their intestines, and it really just can't pass their stomach or whatever, wherever it gets stuck, I don't know. And so it can get pretty in detail. Not only are they being too hot or cold because of this one issue, just the lack of heat or lack of proper temperatures could mean that they're having internal problems like digestion. So yeah, it can be pretty hard to tell sometimes, but that's something to keep in mind. And then there's shedding. This is probably the most common, but also the easiest to fix. Say this bearded dragon, say she was covered in stuck shed. Beardies do shed, like pretty much every other reptile, and most animals shed, but beardies, they normally just eat their shed, and she does not have any stuck shed on her. I don't know if that means the previous owner had to help her, or if that she was able to shed herself, because she hasn't been here long enough for me to see her shed, because even though she's grown up and probably done growing, she'll still continue to shed throughout her life, just a bit less often, because they still keep growing, just very slowly. But say she had like a big chunk of stuck shed on her leg or something, and she can never get that off, that could show maybe she physically can't get to it, maybe it's painful for her to try and get to it and remove it, and the shed itself can cause pain. How many times have I said pain in this video? I don't know. But basically wrap a rubber band around your wrist multiple times and then your hand turns purple. That can happen with bearded dragons and pretty much any reptile. I see it most commonly with ball pythons on the tip of their tails. They'll shed off all their shed and then that little tiny inch of shed is still stuck on the end of their tail. And actually, I didn't even notice. It happened with her. Her tail is completely stubby because this normally happens. Sometimes because they were housed with another animal that like bit it off, but with her, it was most likely she had stuck shed on the end. It constricts her tail to the point that it loses blood flow, the end of the tail dies and falls off. So once it falls off, it's probably not very painful. Looks like this healed up very well, but if it's actively in the process, it's not going to be comfortable, and I can only assume it's similar to cutting off your own blood flow and how it gets really uncomfortable. Just imagine that until your hand falls off. Or don't, you don't have to imagine it, it sounds kind of painful. So the end question, is she in pain? Right now, I honestly don't know what to say. She's breathing kind of hard. I think she's just so tired from moving this very tiny bit. If I compared her to Stan, she hasn't been here that long, so I don't want them to be like too close to each other, and also who knows how they'd react to each other, probably very badly. I don't want to do that. I would guess that she is in more pain on a scale than Stan is. If 0 to 10 pain scale, 10 is excruciating, 0 is no pain at all. Let's just put Stan at a 5, because I truly don't know what he is. A 2. Like if a normal beardy Ruby is a 0. Let's say Stan is a 5. I'd put her at like a 9 in comparison. I don't know, she just has a lot of trouble moving. It's really rough to say, like, who knows how old she is? I'll try and find the information. I really can't find any info on her. Who knows how long she's been like this? Who knows if she's adapted? But when it comes to pain, it looks like she definitely experiences it more than other beardies. Definitely leave your opinions below. I'll check out the comments and I'll keep on watching her. If she really does seem to get bad, I can always consider, I mean, euthanasia is always an option. I don't expect to euthanize her. I highly doubt it. I've never had to do it for an animal simply being straight in pain, and I don't think it's likely, but I think it's always good to be open to different ideas. So it's just kind of annoying that I can't tell for sure. So I highly doubt that she would have to someday be euthanized. I do believe that with the proper conditions, if she's under them long enough, she could get a little better, she could be a bit more comfortable. But yeah, at the same time, people have said that Stan should be euthanized for over 2 years, and I still haven't. Some people say that that's abuse in doing that. Other people say it would be abuse to euthanize him now or 2 years ago. So it's all over the place. It's pretty rough to say, and that's that. This is Stanetta, Stan 2.0. I think I'll do maybe 1 or 2 videos on her because I've got a few ideas, but that's that. So it's probably not the last you'll see of her. If I determine that all is well enough, I would like to be able to rehome her and find someone that's willing to give her a lot of time. But that's it for this video. So I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.